You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron. Now here's your host, Ethan Haristadoulou.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Greeks Gridiron. I'm Ethan Haristadoulou, and it's that time again. A Tuesday, week 6 of the NFL is in the books. We're looking ahead to week 7, and what do we got to do but react and rank all 32 teams worst to first through the tier list as we do every single Tuesday. Monday night had some pretty exciting football. We had a massive upset with the Falcons taking down the Bills at home. The Bears coming away with a massive late game win on the road in Washington against the Commanders. So we've got plenty to discuss and react to. Another wild day of Sunday football as well. A shocker that opened up the week on Thursday night. So comment down below. Let's dive in. Let's discuss how everything looks coming out of week number 6 and as we approach week number 7 of the NFL. We'll take a look at last week's rankings here very quickly so you have an idea as to where everyone stood going into the week, and we will go ahead, wipe the board clean, and we'll start from the bottom and work our way up to the very top. Beginning with, as we always do, the Probably Picks top 5 category. Sitting at the bottom of the league still, New York Jets. Titans are following them, then the Browns, the Dolphins, and then rounding out the best of the worst, we have the Saints sitting at that final spot here. Now, the Jets, 13-11 loss that pretty much speaks for itself. Offensively, it was a nightmare. It felt like a literal nightmare for that Jets team, and you look at some of the numbers between the sacks allowed on Justin Fields nearly hitting double digits, the team net passing yards. I don't know if I've ever seen this before. -10 net passing yards when you account for yardage lost off of sacks as a team. And I think Justin Fields' passing total was about 41 yards altogether through the game. The Jets are gonna Jets, man. And I'm really sorry I'm saying this every single week, but the Jets are gonna Jets. And it is not looking good. This team does not look like it's heading in the right direction. And I don't think I foresee that changing anytime soon. Above them, the Titans, unsurprisingly, have now fired their head coach, Brian Callahan. Tennessee honestly should be 0-6, and they can courtesy Arizona for their epic collapse last week and handing them the lone victory that Brian Callahan racked up for the team this year. But I think the way I look at this, game aside, because it wasn't pretty. It was an ugly performance from Tennessee. I feel for Cam Ward because it feels like he is in a bit of an impossible situation right now. Tennessee's been doing this flip-flopping thing with GM and head coaches for the last few years now, and the memes are already going around about how Mike Vrabel won as many games this season with the Patriots as Brian Callahan did in the year and 6 games he was allowed to coach for the Tennessee Titans. I feel for Cam Ward, his development, and just where this team is going to go. Looks like, I believe it's Mike McCoy who's going to be taking over as head coach of the team now interimly until the end of the season. We'll see how that goes. But as it stands right now, Tennessee just in a really ugly spot. And again, a team that probably should be 0-6 and can greatly thank the Arizona Cardinals for dropping the ball against them last week. Browns above them. Defense is good. Offense is a nightmare, and that's basically where we stand. The only thing worse than the offense and what we've been getting from them in Cleveland is probably the decision-making from the front office, and par for the course, I guess, for the Cleveland Browns, unfortunately. Dylan Gabriel attempting 52 passes in this game. That's how you know things are not going well. When your first-year quarterback making, his second start is being forced under the gun to do 52 passes. He was sacked 6 times. The Steelers were all over him in this one. And somehow, some way, Quinshaw Judkins, who has been absolutely ripping it on the ground, 12 carries. It's not like you were down by some insurmountable number all game long, and I know that the Steelers' defense seems to be finding itself the last few weeks, but I just don't understand how you come out of that game with 52 passes for Dylan Gabriel and only 12 rushes for Quinshaw Judkins. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Dolphins above them. Mike McDaniel, probably the next guy up on the hot seat to get fired. I was assuming he was going to be the first one after the first few weeks of the season, but he's still here. He's still alive. Dolphins ownership apparently preaching patience, which is crazy to me considering where this is all heading. I think you look at just how the game played out. Tua feels like he's regressing with the 3 interceptions that he had. He was throwing really poor balls. The offense just not really able to get a ton going earlier in the game. Ultimately, fourth quarter, they were able to storm back and make things really interesting off of the back of Devon Achane, who continues to shine despite what's going on around him. But I think Tua's post-game comments were kind of a reality check for this Dolphins team and kind of gave everyone a little bit of a peek inside the building based off of just kind of the way he was speaking and just the lack of accountability that a lot of teammates are showing right now. Again, a team that is just well on its way to the dumpster. And again, I won't be shocked if in the next few weeks, if this keeps trending this direction, Mike McDaniel's the next guy whose head gets cut off. Then to round out the group, the New Orleans Saints, the best of the worst with another one-possession loss. Juwan Johnson fumble away from potentially even pulling off this game here because they were starting to drive late in that game. But ultimately, this is the Saints team. I've said this every single week. They're going to be competitive. Their roster is not bad. It's a team that does not have the answer at quarterback right now. And Spencer Rattler, don't get me wrong, has had his moments. But he is not going to be the QB beyond this season. I'd be pretty surprised if that ends up being the case. It's very much a team that has some good pieces in certain areas. The team definitely needs to get better this upcoming offseason. But between now and then, they can be competitive. They can make teams sweat. The score in this one was a little bit closer than it honestly probably should have. The Patriots had over 100 yards of offense and a touchdown wiped out off of offensive penalties. So good effort, good close win. Another game where you lose. You're in the fight to the very end regardless. But this is the Saints team, probably picking somewhere in the top 5. Going into our next category, the Swirling the Toilet, down but not quite out teams in the NFL. To start at the bottom, we have the Raiders. We then follow it up with the Ravens, the Bengals. We then look at the Cardinals, the Giants, and then rounding out the category is the Dallas Cowboys. Now, the Raiders, not the prettiest victory by any means. The fact that you're only beating a Tennessee team that literally fired their head coach following the game by 10 points, and it was kind of like pulling teeth to get yourself to that 10-point win. Big thanks to the defense, obviously, for keeping a crumbling Tennessee offense in check the entire game. You had 3 takeaways, holding Tennessee to 3 of 13 on third down. A lot of this game belongs to the defense here. The offense is still very much in a weird way. Ashton Genty seems to be finding himself, but you're still getting kind of a roller coaster up and down play from Geno Smith as it stands right now. So until you get more consistency from this offense, not a great team to watch, but they got the job done this week for their second win of the season. So hats off to them for that. Ravens above them. If you ever needed like a poster boy or just a poster team, I guess you could say, for, man, we need this bye week, it would be the Baltimore Ravens. I think Lamar will be back. That's what everything I'm reading makes it sound like. Once this bye week moves past, once we get through the next couple of weeks, it should be Lamar back in tow. Derrick Henry found himself a little bit after what has been a very quiet stretch of the season since week number 1. He basically went 4 weeks without crossing the 100-yard mark. It felt, I think that's correct. Yeah, 4 weeks because it was week 1 to week 6. So it's been a while. Now, that being said, what happens with this defense going forward is something worth watching because they were really banged up. They looked really bad these first handful of weeks of the season, but all things considered, against a Rams team who, was dealing with like Puka Nacua coming out of the game, then coming back into it, they largely held the Rams in check for quite some time in that game. So it feels like if you give this team a couple of weeks, let them get healthier, let Lamar get back in the fold, let some of those key defensive guys continue to return to the field, this team could turn it around post-bye week. Are they going to be a playoff team? They're going to have to win a lot, but they're not done. 1-5, only, 3 other teams ever made the playoffs with a 1-5 start in the season. Going to be a lot of work to get done, but I do think that the Ravens have some wins in store post-bye week for them. Bengals right above them. I really want to give Joe Flacco credit for this because for him to be coming in on 5 days notice, essentially 6 days notice, whatever it was from when the trade happened to when he set foot on the field in a Bengals uniform, he came in and he took some shots at Green Bay. And honestly, late in the game kind of made the game a little bit interesting. Couple of touchdowns, 219 yards, completed 29 throws. The defense held Green Bay to just 10 points up until late in the game. So the way I see it, this is the Bengals. They don't have Joe Burrow. They have Jamar Chase, who's going to, even with Joe Flacco as his quarterback, is going to make these big plays here or there where, you could find yourself in the fourth quarter all of a sudden back in the game because Jamar can rip an 80-yard score. But it is what it is. The defense folded. I don't even know if that's the right word, but folded in the fourth quarter, allowing 17 points. So it was a good effort. It was definitely tight, but ultimately the better team eventually pulling away and coming away with the victory. This is the Bengals. Cardinals above them. Jacoby Brissett is all I really got to say about this. And low-key, Jacoby Brissett kind of looked better than Kyler Murray in this offense than Kyler Murray has at any point in the last year or so, just low key. I'm not saying that he should take the job from him, but as somebody who sat there and watched that entire game from start to finish, I've got to say, did not expect Jacoby Brissett to be throwing on the Colts defense that has looked good so far this season for north of 300 yards passing. It's a one-game sample size, again, not getting ahead of myself, but that was crazy to watch. Arizona's defense, though, simply no answers for a Colts offense that has just been rocking and rolling this season. They ended up letting up 31 points on the game. Jonathan Taylor, especially late, was just pounding the rock and taking it to the defense, ultimately running for the victory. But the Cardinals, I'm somewhat worried about them. Again, that loss to Tennessee last week just kind of makes it feel like this team is on the rocks. Things could change between now and then, but if you're at all concerned about the direction this Cardinals team is heading now following that loss, I think it's rightfully so. Above them, we have the New York Giants. Jackson Dart bouncing back with a massive performance, and Cam Scatterbo getting in on the fun as well. Between the two rookies, you're looking at 5 total touchdowns racked up. Cam Scatterbo pounding the rock for 3 of them. I don't know what to make of that result of that Thursday night football game, because it wasn't even the Giants pull off a tight upset victory. It was like they absolutely beat the opposing division rival Eagles into submission in this game. So I don't know what to make of that result. I really don't. Is this the Giants figuring it out after looking the way they did the week prior to the New Orleans Saints? I don't know. Does that loss speak more to the Eagles than it does the win for the Giants? I'm not really sure what to make of this team right now, but they can celebrate a monumental win, a big one that put their division rival in a really, really awkward place right now. And I think that's at least something worth being excited for, regardless of what happens the rest of the way. Then we have the Cowboys right above them to round out the group at 2-3-1. The unfortunate reality of Dallas this season will be that they have an offense that can put up points, that they can score. Dak Prescott's playing unbelievable football, but they are not going to be winning a ton of games if they can't outscore against their opponents. And the fact that they're allowing the amount of yardage that they are week in and week out, the points they're allowed week in and week out. 410 more yards of offense allowed on the ground. Rico Dowdle absolutely just demolishing his former team. Doesn't matter if Dak throws for nearly 300 yards and 3 touchdowns every week. When your defense is allowing about 31 points per game, these are going to be the results that you get if you're not outscoring your opponents. Once CeeDee Lamb gets back in the fold, Kevontae Turpin, I believe, missed this game as well. I think the offense has a little more potency to it, and then we could really maybe see them just win shootouts, but this defense just cannot stop anything. Moving into our next category, we of course have the Jeff Fisher 500 Club. Starting at the bottom, we're looking at the newly entered Carolina Panthers. Now doing a nice climb up the board. They were down low a few weeks ago. Texans right above them. Nothing to discuss there. They did not play this week. Commanders following them. Then the Vikings, the Bears, excuse me, just lost my voice there. The 49ers, and then the Chiefs rounding out the category. Panthers, like I just mentioned with Rico Dowdle, you want to talk about somebody who the last couple of weeks, man, it earned a role in this offense. And I'm one of those people that I feel a certain way about players losing their starting job to somebody while they're injured. But the way Rico Dowdle has played for this Panthers offense the last 2 weeks has got to be discussed. And if there was anyone who should be given an opportunity with the way he's played, because you can't take the ball away from him at this point, it might be Rico Dowdle. So we'll see what happens if they do some sort of split between he and Chuba Hubbard. But Carolina's backfield, as far as running backs are concerned, looks really, really strong right now through 6 weeks. Run defense as well the last 3 games. What was a historically bad run defense last season has now become one of the arguably best in the NFL. In their last 3 straight weeks, from the New England game forward, 104 yards against New England. Not terrible, not bad. Solid performance, though, about 100 yards. Then you're looking at 19 yards against Miami the week following, and then this past week, just 31 against Dallas. They're starting to figure it out defensively, offensively. It's weird. You get this bad play early from Bryce Young, and then suddenly he looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Depending on the week, though, you also get some performances where you go, oh my God, this is not the answer at quarterback. So a 500 club team to a T, in my opinion, as things currently stand. Perfect sitting at 3-3 as well. But again, the Panthers are a weird team for me right now. Depending on the week, it depends on what you're looking at on the football field. But one thing's for sure, they've got something figured out in the running back room. Like I said, Texans sitting right above them, didn't play this week. I just kind of kept them where they were. Commanders right above them, they dropped a few spots here. quite honestly, this game came down to just costly mistakes is really what cost them the football game. From Jaden Daniels' interception early, another fumble late in the game. You had another team fumble on top of that. I mean, the Panthers, the Commanders had this game won. They had this game won and ultimately could not get away from the mistakes, could not stop turning the ball over. They couldn't force turnover as well. And while early the Bears were moving, they kept the offense relatively in check, preventing them from getting into the end zone. They forced them to have to settle for 5 field goals, making 4. So, I mean, it was a pretty solid game altogether. It just came down to the late game mistakes ultimately costing you. You can't turn the ball over 3 times and expect to win a football game. Vikings right above them obviously didn't play this week, so nothing to discuss there. The Bears right above them, moving up to 3-2 with 3 straight victories. DeAndre Swift is the story highlight for this team. 175 yards total, including 34 on the ground in that game-winning drive where he was ripping some big runs. Bears defense, like I mentioned, forcing 3 turnovers in this game as well. If I'm not mistaken now, that was 4. So I think they're sitting on 11 total turnovers in their last 3 games forced, which is crazy to think about because I'm pretty sure they had 4 in each of their last 2 games as well, if I'm remembering that correctly. This team, from the offensive side of the ball to the defensive side of the ball, is buying in on what Ben Johnson is preaching. And I said this about the Bears last game as well that they played against the Raiders and they ultimately won with the blocked field goal. This is another game that in years past Chicago loses, but they're winning these football games now. It really feels like there's a culture shift going on there. And if the Bears offense, especially the passing attack, Caleb Williams comes out of games like he's shot out of a cannon, and the way he makes throws, extremely impressive work. And then it just kind of feels like it trails off as the game goes on and it becomes more and more inconsistent. If he can just put if you could put 4 quarters together from Caleb Williams, the way he looks in like the first half of games, this Bears team would be undeniable. So if they can just get a little bit more consistency on offense, and maybe the emergence of DeAndre Swift this week is going to be a part of that, this is a scary team down the line. Right above them, the 49ers, I actually gave a really steep drop for San Francisco because this is me starting to project that at some point these injuries are going to be too much. And not only do you lose to Tampa Bay in a tough fashion, but you ultimately, on top of that, see regression from Mac Jones. You lose Fred Warner, who's going to be done for the season. The injury bug just will not let go of this 49ers team. And while you do have, Kendrick Bourne, who's having like this career resurgence right now for you, he caught 5 passes for 142 yards in the game. At some point, this is going to catch up with you. And Mac Jones did not look great. This was a tough performance from him. Both of his interceptions were pretty bad throws. It was defensive backs making plays as well, but not great throws by any means. Something tells me that we're going to maybe see a little bit of a course correction because it feels like the 49ers have been getting away with a lot despite all these injuries. And at some point that has to run out. And I feel like that might have been the turning point going up against a really good Buccaneers team. And then rounding out the group right above them, we're looking at the Kansas City Chiefs. Must win for Kansas City, staying in the AFC West race, which is really, really tight right now. You have 2 teams at 4-2 and then them at 3-3. Team behind them's 2-4. So, I mean, the AFC West is this close. That being said, a little more help from the running backs this week, which is always good to see. Mahomes, 4 total touchdowns, 289 total yards. Defense really stepping up, coming up in big situations. This is a possible turning point for Kansas City, who has had a 500 season at this point through 6 weeks. Rashee Rice is coming back next week. The offense looked pretty darn good against the Lions defense that is a bit banged up in the secondary, admittedly, but there is a point, and this was the point that Chiefs fans were waiting for. And as soon as that game ended between the Lions and the Chiefs, you saw the tweets start to go out on social media. Rashee Rice's suspension has been fully served. He'll be back next week. I'm very interested in seeing what this Chiefs team looks like from week 7 and going forward. They are like right outside looking in at the playoffs right now, and I won't be shocked to see them kicking another AFC team out of the top 2 categories in the next couple of weeks. But as it stands right now, they're back on track, and they got a win over a good opponent in a Lions team that came in with only 1 loss prior. And ultimately maybe semi-exposed them a little bit. We'll get into that in a second, but I'm excited to see what this Chiefs team can do going forward. Moving into playoff hopefuls and Super Bowl contenders, a reminder, as always, 7 teams from the AFC, 7 from the NFC. You got to have all 8 division winners, and then the remaining 6 teams are made up by wild card teams, 3 from each conference. That being said, starting out at the bottom of the playoff hopefuls, finding their way back in, clawing back into the category because I had them there at the beginning of the season and they slipped themselves out. We start with the Atlanta Falcons, followed by the Chargers, the Jaguars, Rams, Bills taking a steep drop, Patriots, Broncos, and Lions rounding out the category. Again, talking about teams making some major moves through categories this week. Now, starting with the Atlanta Falcons, phenomenal defensive performance. Pass rush came to life. They were giving Josh Allen fits all game long. They came away with a couple of interceptions, 2 for 9 on third down as well, allowing only 14 points to a Bills offense that up until last week was looking pretty potent, but these last couple of defenses they've gone up against have made that offense look a little bit more human than anything else. Bijan Robinson, I mean, at this point, he's probably the best running back in the NFL. I don't really know if there's a conversation to be had about it. As the way he's playing over these last couple of weeks, it's got to be Bijan. 238 total yards. He had a touchdown. He was averaging 8.9 yards per run. And then you look at Drake London and what he did, 10 receptions for 158 yards and a touchdown, was maybe, a yard and a half or so away from making that 2 touchdowns on the night. So this was a game that Atlanta won by 10, and they probably should have won by 17. Like, it was not even really much of a close performance on Buffalo's end. And for Falcons fans who are maybe watching this going, how are the Bills above us? We just beat them. It's not as simple as just, I beat you, you beat me. I've had the Bills high up on these rankings for quite a while. It's a week-by-week regression for teams as they go. There's a very good chance that next week these are flipped. It's just how the progression of the rankings works. Right above them, the Chargers, sitting at 4-2. Defense damn near gave it away in the fourth quarter as the offense kind of stalled out, but you ultimately get the job done, go down, game-winning drive, kick the field goal like you needed to, clutch drive altogether by Herbert and Ladd McConkey. But I think I want to highlight just the depth that this team seems to have, because the offensive line is banged up, and even despite that, it seems like they're finding a bit of a way to gel. And even in the run game, they're still managing push up front, which is great because Kamani Vidal comes in. He's the starter, and 18 carries, 124 yards. Don't think I expected that from Vidal. So hats off to him for stepping up and opening up the run game, not allowing this Chargers offense to become one-dimensional. And then to Ladd McConkey's discussion again, because we kind of briefly touched on him a second ago, no Quentin Johnston, which is like, it's funny that we're living in this universe where we go, no Quentin Johnston, so Ladd McConkey has a big game, but that's the reality that we're living in this year's NFL. It's a crazy place to be. But Quentin Johnston's out. He's been unbelievable for the Chargers this season. Ladd McConkey finally has that monster game that I bet all the fantasy Ladd McConkey heads were waiting for. So you finally get that, and that finally pays off in week number 6. But it ultimately leads to a game-winning drive altogether. Chargers are 4-2. They're a good team. They're unhealthy as all get out, but if they can just get back to where they need to be health-wise, this is a legitimate playoff caliber team in my eyes. Jaguars right above them. O-line crumbles against Seattle, 7 sacks allowed, and it's been a solid pass protection for the most part for the Jacksonville Jaguars this season, but this excuse me, my voice is going on me. I've been dealing with bronchitis for the last week, so my apologies if I keep having to clear my throat. But the Jaguars, their pass protection has been solid, but the offense as a whole, it's been very wishy-washy, and I don't really know how I've felt about it through these first 6 weeks of the season, going up against a defense in Seattle that I know is good. I know has a good pass rush. They're banged up in the secondary, and even despite that, still did a good job of holding the Jaguars mostly in check for the large majority of this game, aside from a few big plays here or there. I don't know if I can say that I believe in Jacksonville the way I do some of these other playoff teams. They are 4-2, so I have to at least respect that. But I mean, between what we got from their offensive production as a whole, inability to run the football, like they lost the war of the trenches completely in this game, 3.1 yards per attempt of rushing for 59 on the ground. The Jaguars are far from a perfect team and one of the sketchier 4-2 teams in my personal opinion. Rams right above them. A win that ultimately cost you Puka Nacua for some time. And I have to ask, why was he in after spraining his ankle? I think that's what the injury they said it was ankle injury. I'm forgetting what it was exactly, but why did he get back in the game? Like, I understand you want to beat this Ravens team. The game was uncomfortably tight and definitely something worth discussing, but not worth risking Puka like that for the rest of the season because you're trying to win a game against the, at the time, 1-4 Baltimore Ravens who don't even have Lamar Jackson in the tow. Like, I just don't understand what's going on there. And it was a tough day offensively. They missed a field goal on drive 1, special teams, but drive 1 ends in no points despite getting in there. Drive 2, you fumble the football. You have a turnover on downs in the second quarter. Touchdowns finally came once the second half of the game got going in the third quarter. But I thought this would be a more comfortable win for the Rams. I really did. It's a very surprised because you're going up against a banged-up Ravens defense. You're not dealing with Lamar Jackson. It's a far from perfect system going on over there in Baltimore, and to walk away with a 17-3 win where you kind of felt like you skated by, not the best look for this team. They're still 4-2 though, but I expected a lot more from them. Bills right above them. Offense seems to be a little bit broken, I've got to say. I don't know what happened these last couple of weeks, but to be averaging 17 points per game these last couple of games against the Patriots and the Falcons is not something I would have had on my bingo card. Offensive line is struggling in pass protection. Josh Allen just does not seem like he's finding guys open. And the defense, of course, being banged up too is not really helping, but they gave the offense every chance to get back in this game. Like, for as banged up as they are defensively, for them to have only allowed 24 points, even though it probably should have been 31, they gave their offense every opportunity to get back in the game. And all Buffalo gave you was essentially the 2 scripted drives you get in a game, which is to start the first half and second half of a football game. And that was the only time they could net you points. I'm not sure what's going on with the Bills offensively, but this is not a unit that we were seeing the first 4 weeks of the season. But these last 2, whether it's just that the Falcons and Patriots have really good defenses or something's off, and maybe missing key players like a Dalton Kincaid, a Curtis Samuel, or something like that is maybe affecting you. I'm not really sure, but not the Bills team we were seeing the first 4 weeks of the season, without question. Above them, the Patriots, Drake May. Patriots fans, rejoice. Drake May has arrived, and I think it's time for everyone to acknowledge him as a legit top-end quarterback in the NFL. It'd be one thing if it was like a game or two, but we are now 6 weeks into the season, and Drake May is just lighting it up. Another 3 touchdowns, 289 yards. You have Kayshon Boutte, who's emerging as like your legit number 2 opposite of Stephon Diggs, who had a 60-some-odd yard play wiped away from him on the most bogus pass interference call I've ever seen on offense. But I guess if there's one thing you need to be concerned about, this run game can't seem to find itself. You don't want this offense to become one-dimensional. That's not going to be a consistent way to win football games. The schedule coming up, not as easy as it maybe looked a couple of weeks ago on paper. Like, the Browns are probably going to give you a fight, especially on the defensive side. Falcons' defense is very much clearly better than a lot of people were realizing. So you're going to rely on good defense, a young quarterback who's emerging, but we've got to find a run game in New England. The Broncos at 4-2. Ups and downs of the offense definitely make gauging what this team actually is difficult, but I will say this. When it mattered most, they were the team that got a touchdown, whether it was I think it was their 3rd string tight end or something like that they were able to score the lone touchdown in that game. On top of that, defense, pass rush, it's not even close. Best pass rush in the NFL by a bit of a margin for Denver right now. 9 more sacks in this game here. You got big performances from Jonathan Cooper, Talanoa Hufanga, Nick Bonito, Justin Schnaad. Like, everyone was dishing out sacks on sacks on sacks in this game here. The defense is keeping this team alive, and defenses win championships. That is how that works. So for now, one of the better teams in the NFL. They have a big win over the Eagles. You go overseas in a game that you were basically just fumbling around the whole entire time offensively. Defense won you that one. I like this Broncos team. I would just like to see a little bit more consistency from the offense in the ground game. And then to wrap up the group, the Lions. Crucial errors, plays not being made. You name it, Detroit came up with it Sunday night against the Chiefs. On top of the fact that this team is obviously extremely banged up, especially on the defensive side in the secondary. It's clear to me at this point that the Detroit Lions offense is much better when they're either like in a one-possession standoff where they don't need to change the style of play. If they're starting to trail and fall behind and they just got to drop back and pass, it's not a perfect operation. But when they're able to run, pound the rock, trick you with play action, and everything is like in that groove that we've seen the Lions get into over the last few years, the offense works. It's clearly flawed in some ways, though. You're not just going to get Jared Goff to drop back and pass and dice up a defense right now. Secondary, obviously, like I said, clearly needs to get healthy because Mahomes absolutely torched them. Kirby Joseph exiting the game after returning from an injury. So there's a lot for this team to work through. I do have a bit of a concern with this Lions team now because going into that matchup with the Chiefs, I was saying that I needed them to beat a opponent that is a worthy playoff team. And to this point, they don't really have that. They're just looking at, I'm sorry, my cat's in the way here. Buddy just hopped on the table. But I need to see some more consistent. Hello, welcome to the show. This is Feta, everyone. We recently got him. Kitten appearance. But yes, I need to see them beat a playoff caliber team because right now they have wins where they're blowing the doors off of teams that are not going to sniff the playoffs probably, or like fringe playoff team at best. And then you have a tough loss to the Packers and now a tough loss to the Chiefs. We just need to see some more consistency against some of these better teams because right now it's not looking good against the really good teams that they've had to face so far. And then finally, to wrap up the final category that we have this week, we are looking at the Super Bowl contenders category, beginning with the Eagles sitting at the bottom of the Super Bowl contenders category. I know my cat is somewhere behind me right now. Please excuse all of this nonsense. He is crazy and getting into everything. The Eagles at the bottom of this group here, followed by the Green Bay Packers. We then have the Pittsburgh Steelers, followed by the Seattle Seahawks. Then we're looking at the Colts, and to round out a brand new number one, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That being said, the Eagles falling down to the bottom of the Super Bowl contenders category with back-to-back losses to the the Broncos, and then the unbelievable loss on Thursday Night Football to the New York Giants. Offense basically died in the second half, 4 straight punts, ending the game with 2 straight turnovers. I think the conversation surrounding some of this drama going on in the locker room, especially offensively, is warranted at this point. This offense has not looked good consistently in about 8 in some quarters, and I'm starting to wonder if the noise that we're hearing is maybe a little bit more real than people want to admit. We're in that same spot that I feel like we've seen the Eagles kind of fall into. It seems like it's like a yearly event now at this point, because this is the 3rd season in a row that this is happening, where the Eagles find themselves in this position of there is a turning point in the year. Which way are they going to go? We had the initial year, was it a couple seasons ago, where they had like 11 wins and they lost their last 5 games. Then the following season, obviously, they start 2-2, turn things around, win the Super Bowl in dominant fashion. And now here we are, week 6 of this 3rd straight season where there's drama going on within the locker room. There's a lot of noise, and we've hit that turning point. And now we all just have to ask, which way is this going to go? Are they going to fire off and head towards the playoffs like they did last year? Or is it going to look like a couple years ago where maybe they bottom out and things go south? Eagerly watching, but I've got to say, a 34-17 loss to the Giants on Thursday Night Football was definitely not on my bingo card for this team. Right above them, the Green Bay Packers, a little bit of an uneasy win, but a win nonetheless. Cincinnati definitely, I think, gave them a little bit more than they were anticipating altogether, but 17 play, 10-minute drive the defense led up to open up the second half. Definitely a little bit worrying. It is like you are dealing with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, I guess, but I just would have expected a more convincing win from this Green Bay Packers team. They did show why, though, that they are still one of the better teams in the NFL. I mean, you had 4 different receivers catch 20-plus yards pass, or 20-yard or more passes in the game. Offensively, Jordan Love had some big throws. Obviously, that fourth quarter to put the game away was huge for them and helped separate yourself from the Bengals a bit. But a win, but an uneasy win, I guess you could say, for the Packers. Steelers right above them. This Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf combo is really starting to take off. You had another 4 catches, 95 yards and a tutty for DK Metcalf as that connection between the two continues to grow. But the real story here for Pittsburgh is going to be this defense, because after a couple of weeks where things looked really crazy and they were allowing 30 points per game through those first 2 games of the season, you look at the way this defense has shaped up the last few weeks, the amount of turnovers they've forced, 17 sacks in their last 3 games, almost 6 sacks per game right now, and allowing no more than 21 points in that same stretch. This defense is firing on all cylinders right now. Jalen Ramsey, who I will, and I'm never afraid to admit a mistake here, kind of scratched my head at the trade for him, getting rid of Minkah Fitzpatrick, but holy cow, is Jalen Ramsey a Pittsburgh Steeler or what with the way he's playing right now? And he looks so good in the uniform, so hindsight's always 20/20. I was way off on that. I'll openly admit that. Really love what we're seeing from the Steelers right now, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Seahawks right above them. Excuse me. Sam Darnold. Another near 300-yard performance, 2 more touchdowns. He had 2 massive 61-yard passes in this game. One was a touchdown to JSN, another one being a clutch pass to A.J. Barner in the fourth quarter to really put the game away. Jackson Smith-Njigba at this point is he's out of his mind the way he's playing right now. Another 8 catches, 162 yards, and a score for him. Pass rush was terrorizing Trevor Lawrence all game long. And this is a Seahawks team who, yes, at 4-2, looks like one of the best teams in the NFL. But on top of that, they were an unfortunate bounce off of a player's helmet into a defensive back for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last week's head away from potentially being able to pull off a win over Tampa Bay. This is a Seahawks team that very well could have been 5-1 this week if things had literally bounced their way going up against the Buccaneers just last week. So really impressed with what Seattle's doing. Sam Darnold, he's doing it again like he did last year. I was not a believer for a long time, and I feel like we got the true Sam Darnold when things kind of came down to it and it was time for clutch time. We'll see what he does this season as the year goes on. He's continuing to look good, though. He's continuing to make some really big plays. He's clearly a very good quarterback. I will be willing to admit that. Is he a guy that's going to get you over the hump? I don't necessarily know. I've got to see that before I can believe that. But I will say this, the career resurgence around Sam Darnold at this point is real to some extent, and he is playing like one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now. So I will at least give him that. Coming at the number 2 spot, and I quite honestly cannot believe that this team is 5-1. For those of you that are unaware, I am a Colts fan. I grew up a Colts fan, and ever since Andrew Luck retired, I have spent the rest of my Colts fandom up until basically this season just kind of ripping into them and scrutinizing every decision they made, especially at the quarterback spot, because I was not thrilled with the way things were handled with Andrew Luck towards the tail end of his career and ultimately what happened with his retirement. That being said, this season, as I have sat here questioning everything I'm getting from Indianapolis every single week, this is a game that Indianapolis loses in years past because they were basically blowing a game to Jacoby Brissett and the Arizona Cardinals as their defense got torched for over 300 yards through the air. And here I was just watching this game play out going, here we go. This is how they lose. They're going to blow a game like this against a Cardinals team that just blew a game to the Tennessee Titans the week prior. But no, the offense is as talented as it is, but they finally have a quarterback who's at least playing to the level of the talent surrounding him, which is like a bare minimum ask, I feel like, with this Colts team. And between Indiana Jones, and I cannot believe that's his nickname, and Jonathan Taylor, who is probably second only to Bijan Robinson at this point in the NFL season, I've got to say this Colts team's making me believe. They're coming up with plays when it matters most, and the offense is just unbelievable, putting up 30-some-odd points per game so far this season. This feels like I'm watching heyday Peyton Manning Colts offense with just how efficient they are, with how many points they're putting on the board every single week. And I can't believe words like that are coming out of my mouth, but here we are. So in my eyes, 5 wins, 1 loss, one of the best offenses in the NFL. I don't really know how you can't have the Colts this high at this point. And I don't even know if I believe it, but I'm trying to figure out how I could knock them lower and not have them where they are, despite the fact that they are just running through teams offensively right now. The defense has had some really big weeks. They've also had some not so great weeks like this past one, but they're, like I said, coming up with plays when it matters most. And again, each and every single week is like another just dumbfounding experience for me because I can't believe what I'm watching on the football field when Indianapolis plays. And then rounding things out at the very top, at number 1, of course, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It is time to give them their flowers. They are the team in the NFL to beat right now. At 5-1, they are getting the job done each and every single week, and they were really close to getting it done against the Philadelphia Eagles a few weeks ago as well. But I mean, Baker freaking Mayfield, man, working with his 4th, 5th, and 6th wide receivers by the time this game was wrapping up and still getting the job done. You look at that 3rd down run where he went for 15 yards to get the first down. That is MVP, put it all on the line type of play. And I cannot believe what we're getting out of Baker Mayfield at this point. The defense also coming away big time, making it a very tough afternoon. That was an afternoon game for the San Francisco 49ers. 6 sacks, couple of interceptions off Mac Jones. I mean, this team is about as complete as they look right now, and it sounds like they're going to get healthy. It sounds like Mike Evans is at least coming back and a few other guys as well, which will be huge for this team because that wide receiver room is going to be missing Emeka Egbuka for a while. Hopefully he gets back sooner rather than later because that had been one of the most fun things to watch emerging out of this season as well. But as it stands right now, despite all the injuries they've been dealing with, skill position-wise, offensive line-wise, on the defensive side of the football, this team is 5-1. And it's these types of battle tests that will help you out in the long run down towards the back end of the season and as we reach the postseason. Because if this team's hurt now and gets healthy then, you're going to have to really need to look out for this Buccaneers team. But Baker Mayfield for MVP. Buccaneers are my number one in the NFL, and I don't really know how you could have any other team above them. But those are my rankings going into week number 7 of the NFL. I apologize if my voice is going out. I apologize for my kitten running through. I'm having a lot going on right now. I've been sick. I'm finally getting better. Voice is finally coming back. It's been a tough couple of days, the last few. So if you made it to the end through all of the nonsense, I greatly appreciate it. I will see you all on Wednesday, so tomorrow, to break down our first game of the week for Thursday Night Football. But until then, I will see you all next time.